Hey, YouTube. Still don't see it. Hey, YouTube. How's it going? My live stream is healthy. But on mine it's dragging. And somebody needs to give me a heads up on whether my sound or picture are coming through okay. I'm brand new to this stuff. Hey, Bob. Hey, Bob. I'm starting to type instead of talk. Testing. 1, 2. Hello, world. Cool. How's the video? I mean, besides having me in it. I'm using Xfinity. XSplit. I'm sorry. Okay, my video's moving too. Okay, I can see my video on my XSplit screen, and I can see the chat. How are you guys doing? It was a great stream, Bob, by the way. Dr. Pepper 10 for the win. Hey, Victor. Yeah, this is going to take some getting used to because I can't even make myself answer vocally first. I want to type. I'm so used to live streams, I have to type. Well, yeah, this XSplit seems to be working all right. It was a lot easier to set up and do than OBS was. But maybe now that I've done this, I can figure out how to do OBS. Yay, I'm live streaming. It seems to be pretty good quality, and I seem to have decent stream health, and I set the video setting up pretty high. Now if I just looked a little better, it'd be all right, huh? You have to excuse my computer room. It's my room to stack stuff up in. I've got this Logitech X922. No, not the X, I'm sorry. I couldn't get the... Aw, thank you, Nisi. We should all be so lucky as to get to this age. 9 watching? Wow. Well, maybe I can take Bob's Saturday night spot. Again, I'm going to type an answer to you, Nisi. I noticed stringy white poop on one of the dwarf neon rainbows, so I had to treat it with General Cure. Corey recommended General Cure, and so I went with General Cure. Sorry, the fish life. Hey, Sergeant Tank. Cool. Welcome back, Susan. Actually, I was looking the other day, and I have 5 tanks. I've got a 110 that's my breeding project for my L260s, although now I'm kind of using it as a breeding tank for my Teleocyclas too. I've got a 20 high with shrimp from Lucas in it. I've got a 55 that I'm working on. I'm going to video cleaning it and recocking it and making a stand for it because I need to make a stand for my 20. What was my first ever tank? Gosh, it had to be in, it was when I was going to college. The first tank I remember, it was when I was going to college and a friend of mine needed to put his tank somewhere while he was gone from school. So he brought it over and set it up on my countertop, and I had it until the fish in it died. I kept turtles and stuff like that when I was real young, though. This lighting setup's pretty weird. I've got a LED light over my keyboard so I can see to type. 10 watching. Wow. I'm impressed. I'm not sure I'd watch me or not. Yeah, Randy, those Endlers from Lucas look really sweet. They're a little pricey for my pocketbook right now, but I need to make some moderators, don't I? Add moderator. Add moderator. Well, I honestly think that everybody that comes comes to my first live stream ought to be getting added as a moderator. So, now, is that everybody? Oh, Lumpy Dog. Lumpy Dog could be a moderator too. Let's see, did I get everybody? I'm not so sure I'll make a great replacement. Sharon Gregory. I don't recognize that name. But if you're on my first live stream, then you can be a moderator too. Okay, Robert. I'm getting you now. It's kind of different being the one behind the camera instead of just sitting and watching. Well, thanks, Sharon. Yep, Lumpy Dog's got too much responsibility now. Everybody else quit being a moderator and make Lumpy Dog do all the work. Thanks, Rob. I'm not sure that I'm worthy of your praise, but I try to be, man. Why do you feel nervous, Joel? You've done lots of neat stuff. What is my favorite species to breed? Well, that depends, because the fish life. This is the wrong person to ask about making videos. Sergeant Tank. If you go by the fish that I've bred the most of, for 10 years, I've line bred Jack Dempsey's. So I would have to say from experience, Jack Dempsey's are the ones I've had the most experience with. Gosh, if I get close, I get some light on my face. But what I want to breed is plecos. And so I have yet to breed my L260s, but that's what I want to do. But I've bred lots of tetras, but that's kind of a afterthought rather than actually trying. Fish Life, it looks like I didn't get you modded. Yeah, plecos. I've been through the large giant fish phase back in the 70s. I went through my South American cichlid phase, South and Central American cichlid phase in like the 80s to the 90s. And then as I was going along, I got catfishes and loaches and stuff like that. Okay, Racing, you're a mod. It's all your responsibility now. Everybody that logs in and talks gets mod duty. Catfish seem to be a natural progression to me. It seems like that's where I went to. I noticed when Inglorious Betas was doing that car interview with her buddy, the guy that wrote the book with Rachel, Nanotank Rachel, that he says that eventually you get to anabands, Grammies and stuff like that. But to me, catfish are far more difficult than anabands. Will I be there the whole weekend during aquatic experience? That's my plan, and I hope to. Joel says, how have you seen the availability of fish change over time? Well, I'm not sure that the availability of fish has changed as much as my ability to look for them. Good night, Susan. Thank you for stopping by. I thought I made you a mod. Well, you're a mod now, Susan. Of course, in the late 80s and the early 90s, a lot more fish became available. But at that time, I was pretty deep into the hobby, so I understood where to look to find those fish. I'm not sure, other than more fish being introduced to the hobby, but there's that much difference with the availability of fish. Now, there used to be a lot more fish stores, brick and mortar fish stores. But now with the advent of online ordering and stuff like that, I think it's a lot easier to get fish, and that may put the brick and mortars out of business. But African cichlids, huh, Joel? Well, I'm probably going to lose some subscribers because of this, but the only African cichlid I've ever kept, besides the small dwarf cichlids, is the Maui eye biter. None of the rest of them just ever really appealed to me that much. I cut my teeth on the personality of South and Central American cichlids, and I just don't think they compare. I just really, honest to gosh, for me, I'm not down on African cichlids. I don't hate people that keep African cichlids, but they just, their personality has never really appealed to me. The personality of African cichlids just doesn't rise to the level of the personality of Central, really, and South American cichlids. Central American cichlids are so personable. Yeah, I'm jealous of you thinking about getting Severums. I thought real hard about putting some Severums in my tank, this 110-gallon tank, Sergeant, but I was afraid they would eat the baby plecos if I got any. Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way, Lumpy Dog. I feel like that, in my heyday, the equivalent of discus was warus, and I kept warus, and I could keep them alive for about a year and a half, and then I'd always end up losing them. I don't know why. I love those fish. They're the poor man's discus. Oscars, I've never kept an Oscar. I always liked Dempsey's, and Oscars always seemed kind of, beyond the range of Jack Dempsey's. Larger, dirtier to keep in a tank, harder to keep up with, have to feed them a lot more. Of course, I kept Pacus for quite a while too. And nothing's dirtier than Pacus are. Yeah, I've kept Severums before, Sergeant. I have had them before. But the time when I got Severums, it was like my skill set wasn't good enough to keep them alive. And that's part of the problem with the warus that I got too. Warus can be pretty particular about water quality, and of course I didn't really understand water quality like I do now. What did I do for a career? If you'll look closely, for the past 20 years, all my clothes have paint spots on them. I painted commercial buildings for a large commercial company. You know, all the giant warehouses and all that stuff. Uh, I've mostly been in construction my whole life. I always liked having a job where that left my brain in neutral, where I could spin my brain thinking about other things. Yeah, exactly, Sergeant. I don't think you could make a dwarf Oscar. Even if you got runts and line bred them, I don't think you could make a dwarf Oscar. They're probably smaller now than they were in evolutionary history. Lumpy. Yeah, hey Racing. I've really enjoyed a lot of your videos, Racing. You do a great job of encompassing nature into your thought process on your tanks. I really enjoy your videos. Well, good, the fish life. This is my first ever live stream, so I figure anybody that comes to it and speaks in my chat, they deserve to be a mod. But yeah, Victor, the painting, I when I got into my 40s, hey Jim, mod time for you, buddy. It's all your responsibility now. I finally got it running, Jim. I used XSplit. This Logitech camera came with a 3-month premium license version from XSplit. Nice, Lumpy Dog. You could tout that forever. Jim, everybody that's here and talks is going to be one of my mods. I figure that's only fair if they show up at the first live stream I've ever done. Rats, I was eating and now I can't finish my dinner because I'll be eating in front of you guys. Nah, don't worry about it, Racing. Just put out the content, man. So what do you guys want to talk about? Yes, mod wall. First ever live stream, and it deserves a mod wall. That way nobody can mess with each other. Think nothing of it, Racing. You do excellent stuff. Don't ever think you don't. Yeah, it's going to be rough on me not to play a lot of music while this is going on. My big old Logitech speakers have I've developed an issue with my I think it's my jack plug-in on the base station. I think the jack plug-in's got a short in it. So anytime I turn it on, it'll crackle, fizz, and go out. I've had them for a lot of years. The fish I have struggled to keep the most, Lumpy Dog, is the one I always use as an example of a fish I don't like, and it's the chaka chaka catfish. They they eject digestive juices into the water, and it'll kill everything else in the tank around them. I had one in a 55-gallon tank in like 1993, and he killed everything in the tank with him just by ejecting those digestive juices. Um, April, Nisi, yes on salt and no on salt. No, because if you keep your fish in salted water all the time, they are going to have trouble whenever you do a water change that doesn't include salt with it. Salt helps them osmotically get rid of fluid. It enables them to get rid of fluid easier, but I use salt, aquarium salt, as a treatment at times. Epsom salt. So if I've got a fish I've got in a quarantine tank, and I know that fish is having trouble breathing, or whatever disease it's got is giving it a hard time, then I'll put a little salt in there with it to make it easier. Let's see. I missed somebody's question. Have I ever seen the true Cynodontis granulosus? I don't think I have. I've kept so few African catfish because when I was really going out and spending all of my income on fish and catfish, there weren't very many. And plus, I don't keep Africans that much, so I didn't need African catfish. I'm a firm believer of putting like fish with like fish. I think if you're going to do an African tank with African cichlids, then you don't want to put a common pleco in there with them. You want to put something that comes from their area. Because I honestly believe through all my observation, and this may be utterly false, this is just anecdotal belief by me. Yeah, I do use Epsom salt too, Racing. Fish that don't speak the same language will get into more trouble in a tank than fish that understand each other's body movements. They're sending out signals all the time. And a big cichlid will send out a signal to a bottom feeder that you're bothering me and you're in my area. But if it's a South American cichlid and an African catfish, the African catfish doesn't really understand what's going on until that cichlid hits him and knocks him out of the way. So to me, picking what fish you get to eat every day. So for me, I really prefer like fish with themselves when I'm doing a tank. Now, it doesn't have to be an exact biotype, although I do like biotypes, but I really think it's important for the safety and the health of the fish, if you do a community tank and you've got Asian and African and South American and Central American fish all together. I love Dovai's fish life. I've kept Dovai's twice in my life. Dovai's and jaguars, both of them are just awesome fish. Picking what the fish get to eat every day. I've got a ton of fish food. My fish get something different. I usually feed them the same flake for a few days, and then I'll switch up to another flake. But my fish get a ton of stuff to eat, different kinds of stuff. I'm probably overfeeding them. I wonder if I'm stepping on some other broadcaster's live stream. I got my video games running in the background, so I'm having to keep my video games going. My frozen shoulder messed up on me. Oh, fish life, I was talking about dove eyes. I've kept dove eyes twice in my fish keeping life, and what I also really love are jaguars, Maniquinci. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I love both of those fish. But if you're going to keep a dove eye, you need to go look at Gotopi Mel's videos, because a real dove eye will be about that big and about that tall when he's full grown. So if you're going to keep a dove eye, you better have a 500-gallon tank ready for him. And I learned that the hard way, so I had to rehome mine. Yeah, the old fisherman's. It was this big. I'm not sure I'm worthy of that nomination, but I might do it. I might try it. Maybe we could trade off. I know there's a lot of guys that have been live streaming a lot longer than I have. Mel is an awesome fish keeper. Mel's the kind of fish keeper that I would love to be. When the word expert gets thrown around, Mel is an expert in every sense of the word. He's someone that really understands the fish he keeps. And he works his butt off to keep them in the prime health. We keep these fish in little tiny boxes of water, and there is no way that we can compete inside these tanks with the turnover and even a stagnant stream of water, much less a river system. So it's really hard for us to be able to keep fish in their, prime possibility. Well, that's pretty faint praise, guys. You're the only ones that are here in my live stream. so I'm not wise. I'm just older than dirt, Joel. Gatopi, Mel. It's Grutope, isn't it? It's Spanish. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but I've heard it said many times before. It's a type of fish. No habla español. Thanks for stopping by, Lumpy Dog. I really appreciate it that you guys have shown up in force for me. I mean, I'm glad it's not 200 people because I couldn't possibly keep up with the chat. Fish room tour of his basement? I didn't know that Corey had a basement. I think it's just his fish room. Oh, you're talking about Mel. Yes, you're right. Mel's basement is awesome. Impractical jokers. Nice racing. Well, I hope to live up to. I finally realized it, Dan. You're right. But I knew who Mel was from a long time ago. Let's see. You get very few um, videos out of Mel. He just doesn't put them out that often. But every one that he has done is way worth watching. Way worth watching. Believe me, you're going to learn more watching Mel walk around and say nothing, just watching how he deals with his tanks. The forethought that he's... Hey, Charles, welcome. Mod time for you. Yeah, Mel's a beast. Mel was a beast back in the late 60s and early 70s, so that's where I know him from. He the old joke is that the American Cichlid Association, ACA, actually stands for African Cichlid Association, because almost all the people in the early ACA and in the later ACA have kept African cichlids, and the South American and the Central American cichlids pretty much get short shrifted by that fact that all the people are keeping. There's very few real superstars in the Central American and South American cichlid. Mel is one of those stars. And he recognized what was going on way back when and started a mimeograph circular that was about South and Central American cichlids, just because he understood that the ACA wasn't really meeting the needs of people. But, you know, you got to kind of stick together. Thanks, Sergeant Tank. Thank you for all the streams you've done lately and for all that you do, man. Charles, what's up with you, man? What are you into right now? No problem, The Fish Life. That's a link that you should watch. You should close my live stream and go watch Mel's stuff. You're going to learn a whole lot more about the history of the hobby and about what an expert thinks about keeping fish watching Mel. Oh. I can't really see how long I've been on here. Have I been on here an hour and 39 minutes already? Oh my gosh. Boy, time really does go by. Yeah, I've looked at that channel, Sawyer. I don't recognize you, but you're now one of my moderators. Don't make me regret it. Anybody that stops in on my live stream, my first live stream ever, and makes a comment is worthy of being a moderator. Now later on, if there's a bunch of problems, then we'll weed the moderators down. But for the start, I think it's worthy. Yes, Charles. I'm very much inclined to react badly towards that little rant by Joey, and it's not because I don't believe that YouTube needs to have some way for inexperienced people to be able to recognize people that are dispensing anecdotal advice. This worked for me, instead of quote quote expert advice. But what exactly is expert advice? You know, how do you quantify who's an expert and who's not? Because a lot of people aren't really interested in helping other hobbyists. This kind of gets into the whole fish club area, and it's anybody that's ever gone to a fish club knows that there's a lot of people in that fish club that are higher up on the hierarchy in the fish club that don't really deign to speak to you because you're new and you haven't brown nosed long enough to be worthy of their attention. And I for sure don't want YouTube to get like that. I don't want it to be where people are inaccessible to the secret knowledge of fish keeping. I want YouTube to be wide open so that the lowest experienced fish keeper hobbyist can come online and get up to speed quickly keeping fish. Nothing's worse for the hobby than for inexperienced keepers to come online, get a bunch of bad information, or not come online and get no information, and immediately kill their fish, because then they're out of the hobby. That wasn't any fun. I spent $100. I'm glad, Joel. Yeah, Facebook is terrible racing. I rarely spend any time looking at Facebook fish forums anymore just because of that reason. It's so polarized. I mean, politics in our country is so polarized anymore that if a group's mostly Republicans and they know you're a Democrat, they'll freeze you right out. You're right, Charles. I agree completely on that. I think there is a whole another level of what expert really is. But if it's an ichthyologist, if it's a fishery scientist, if it's a fish biologist, if it's a fish farm expert, those people, while they are experts, they may not be able to give you advice about keeping general fish in home aquarium. It's yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to give out anecdotal evidence. And anecdotal evidence is, this is what I saw. This is what worked for me. And sometimes that's really great advice because it's completely different from the mainstream. And sometimes it's bad advice. And sometimes it's bad advice because of the people who try to put it into use not knowing what's going on. But I don't want to see YouTube get polarized like Facebook is, or like our national politics are. Why would we want to make this place some place where people don't talk to each other, or don't respect each other, or don't show respect to each other? If this is going to be some ego trip where people are always, I don't like you, so you're not an expert in my book, that's got no place on YouTube. Well, Joey's great. I love Joey's stuff. I like Joey a lot. But I just think he's going off on a tangent here that's fraught with issues. It's not because it doesn't need to happen, because it probably does. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't really give a lot of advice to people. He claims himself not to be an expert enough to give advice. But are we going to get to the point where you got to have a PhD to give advice on YouTube? Because if that's the case, then none of us can give advice. We can't even really do anything but just talk about fish. I think Joey's right in the sense that there needs to be some way to give heads up to new people that sometimes the advice that you're going to get is not necessarily going to be the best advice for you. Not that it's untrue, not that it's not anecdotally correct for someone else, but that you probably don't have the skill set needed to put that advice into effect and have it work for you. What fails to go on in this world anymore is we're not teaching people how to logically reason, how to separate facts from fiction, how to use discernment. Uneducation is almost as highly thought of now as education is, and it's a crying shame. Yeah, I don't blame you, Bob. I have some of my own anger management issues, and so when I see stuff like that, I tend to react out of hand, and I've learned to do my Buddhist practice and to take a deep breath and to think about why it is, what's my motivation in reacting to this. So I try to go a little, give a little and go a little. I try to think about it for a few days and think if there's some way that I can actually respond to those sorts of things in a way that is helpful to other people, in a way that's not just adding to the polarization, in a way that's not just me being my own ego problem, because that's what it. Yep, you're going to Peru with somebody that has anger management problems. But I'll teach you my Buddhist relaxation method too, Bob. And you can make sure I practice it before I punch you. The Buddhist method is you get in a fight, you get in an argument and you get in a fight and you punch somebody in the nose and then you have a big fight. Well, then you stop and think about it and you think, how could have I avoided punching Bob in the nose? And so the next time you get in an argument, you start to get in a fight and you say, you know what, the last time this happened, I punched Bob in the nose. And I'm not going to punch Bob in the nose this time because he's a good friend of mine. And you try to work backwards. So, no, I'm too old to get in fights, Bob. Fights. When I was young, I could get over a fight in a couple of hours. Not anymore. Try being 60 and getting in a fight. Yeah, I agree, Racing. You're right. Okay, Joel says he'll punch you, Bob. I'm not advocating anyone punching anybody. This is strictly for an example purpose. Well, I don't know, Nisi. I have a hard time saying I don't know. I've been through so much crap in the fish keeping hobby that it's hard for me to have no answer to someone asking a question. Sometimes I say more than I know. What's the verbiage? I've already told you more than I know. No, Bob was worried about me having anger management issues and going to Peru with him, Nisi. Yeah, I agree. Every tank is different. Every tank. If you've got a whole rack of tanks, every one of them is different in some way from the others. But you can generalize. Yeah, Charles, I agree. I should say from my own experience a lot more. But as old as I am, I think maybe that should be implied. From my own experience, I'll get it tattooed on my forehead. Yes, Nisi, we all get angry sometimes. Some of us get a little angrier than others. Charles, I don't know. You're going to have to talk to Bob. I'm afraid he's going to email me and say, "So sad, Dwain, we're already in Peru and you're not here." Ha ha ha. But I'm in if they'll let me be in. I've been talking about going to Peru since the 70s. Well, not really Peru. Brazil. I'd much rather go to Brazil, but you can't keep fish from Brazil anymore. You can collect them, but you can't keep them. And yes, Nisi, we all do get angry, but I think it's what you do with that anger. It's how you handle that anger. It's how you act on that anger. I don't know. I like Dustin a lot. Dustin has Dustin has about as much passion as anybody I've ever watched on YouTube. But I think Dustin may be getting caught up in this whole ego trip thing, and it's a shame. I don't really feel like I made much of a connection with him at the live stream event. I tried to help. I tried to facilitate. I tried to talk to people that were at the event that I felt like might benefit from it. I hope Dustin is bigger than all that he understands, but I don't know. Yeah, I agree. There shouldn't be an agenda. Yeah, you can't really do a bibliography on a video, Charles. I've thought about that myself, but how are you going to bibliograph an article that you've accessed in some defunct magazine that nobody can possibly find anymore? It's kind of hard to do that with fish stuff. Yes, I think we can keep 4 fish a day, Randy, or maybe 5. Yes, you can export them. You can't export from Brazil no longer because all the fish are on the no export list. But in Peru, you can. That's the reason I'm going to Peru. And you don't bring them back with you. I don't have an exporter or importer's license. And that's what you have to have to ship fish across country lines. So the people themselves have the export import license, or somebody they deal with does. So they keep your fish that you want to take or that you're thinking about wanting to take in aquariums at the site. And then they bag them up and ship them, I guess, after they know you're home. By the time your plane lands and you can get home and get settled, then because you'll have to pick them up at an airport. I don't think they ship them to local addresses. They just ship them to your local airport. and you're going to have to go down and pick them up. I've probably got about 50 actual aquarium books, but I've got a lot more magazines and pamphlets and stuff like that, Charles. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think most average hobbyists that are just getting started and watching YouTube are going to sit around and wait till the end of a video to see what the bibliography is. Maybe some of them will. I very early on I did a tetralogy video specifically for Rachel O'Leary, because in a talk that she gave at my quote local fish club, I brought up reed tetras, and she asked what the scientific name was, and of course I drew a blank. So I went right home and did a video on it, and I managed to find the actual classification papers for the fish. It was done in the 80s, and it is at the end of the video so that you can stop it and read each page of the actual ichthyology classification pages. But I don't think a lot of people get that far. They watch the fish for 60 seconds and then they go somewhere else. Well, you could put it in the description, but I don't think it would work that way either. I don't think people are all that interested. All social media is crap. In the sense that all social media is personal, I guess I could probably agree with that statement, but that doesn't discount the fact that some of it's very advantageous to people that are new to the hobby watching. Yeah, I remember most of the tropical fish mags racing. It's changed tons. But that doesn't mean that some of the stuff we used back then isn't still valuable today. There was an awful lot of people out there that were working desperately hard to try to breed fish and keep new fish, and they went through a lot of changes to get to the point where they could do those things. Yeah, I don't miss them. I'm subscribed to TFH and Amazon Digital, and at some point I'm going to start doing giveaways. I don't have a lot of money. And I'm not asking for anyone to give me money on my channel because I don't want money to be involved. But at some point, like 500 subs or something like that, I'm going to do a giveaway, and I'll let you 13 people in on the secret. That's what I'm going to give away. You're going to have a choice for a year of digital TFH or a year of Amazonas year digital. And when you log onto the digital, you get access to all the previous stuff. Good night, Sharon. Thank you for stopping in. So that way, I think anybody in the world that speaks English can log on to those two magazine websites and get those. Now, I'm sure seasoned, Charles. Seasoned and toasted. Rode hard and stabled wet. You had to go for one day to school. You're going to learn how to house 50,000 species of fish in a pet store, and you get one day of schooling. Hey, Dan. How's kicks in Cleveland? I hated you guys beat us the other day, but I'm going to make you a moderator anyway. The Pacers fought hard for it, but they lost. They missed too many free throws. Yeah, you can actually make a case that people that have worked at pet stores have deserve a certain amount of respect from people that are looking for experts or people that are trying to decide who an expert is. But I don't know that they really qualify for it. Yeah, I remember Super Pets. They didn't last very long, though. All right, people. I've actually been going for 2 hours. This is amazing. Yeah, I can't believe that you didn't know more. But if you work at a place like that for 5 years, you should still get some modicum of credit for being an expert at fish keeping because you literally had to deal with watching all those fish die. Yeah, Charles. I bet they hated you working there because you know so much about fish. You'd be telling people, no, no, don't get that fish. That fish won't go in a 10-gallon tank. All right, guys. This has been outrageously fun and highly addictive, but I've been on here for 2 hours and I need to finish my dinner. So I'm going to close this stream. Thank you all. Yeah, I broke my vid cherry. I'm no longer a virgin. Gee, it only took me till age 62 to lose my virginity. All right, guys. Have a good night. I'll be doing this more now that I know how to do it.